Some of my most memorable and favorite games are single-player experiences with carefully crafted narratives that took me on unforgettable journeys. While these sort of games are undoubtedly great, every so often I do love me a shared undertaking alongside a group of friends to have ourselves a crazy fun time. Falling somewhere in between, you get those games crafted for just two people. That said, I am Jinko and this is my list of 5 games that were perfectly made for 2 players. It's well documented that birds of a feather flock together. I'll go out on a limb here and say they might just be dedicated hard workers as well. That has to be the case when you watch these 2 New Zealander birds working their feathers off in the co-op spectacle that is KeyWe. Developers Stonewheat and Son set out to take one of the most boring sounding jobs on the planet and inject some fun into it. Just how they came about KeyWe sounds a bit like a hodgepodge of concepts thrown together, but the results certainly ended up being nothing short of fun. The game found life at the 2018 Global Game Jam, where they had 48 hours to come up with a game. They drew the random modifier that their game had to contain a bird protagonist. Brainstorming ideas led them to a game of flightless birds working at the Postal Service desk job. Another oddly fascinating inspiration behind KeyWe was none other than the late, great Terry Pratchett's novel Going Postal. Regardless of its dubious sounding title, the book is actually centered on a con man who'd been given the opportunity to become postmaster at a rundown post office. The concept of a postal service set in a fantasy world stuck with the developers and in a way served as a backdrop for the post office being operated by birds. The game consists of a variety of tasks for the player to accomplish from one stage to the next. These can range from sorting envelopes and boxes through to typing out messages on weirdly elaborate typewriter-like machines. Each stage has its basis, but as you play, things will slowly ramp up and become quite challenging. Across the stages, you'll find the tasks repeat, but there would always be a new hook in the way of variations. Whether it be an electrical storm messing with machinery, or an overgrowth of plants getting in your way, each stage will have a familiar layout but with a new twist. Sadly, we had some issues plaguing our experience. Some strange connectivity problems such as the game being out of sync and in cases textures not loading properly. This didn't happen a lot and usually a quick restart would fix the issue. While some of the minigames proved to be more fun than others, as a whole everything does come together in a neat bird-sized package. The developers ultimately set out to craft a game made to be a fun time. So if that is what you're looking for, then as a 2-player experience, KeyWe will serve you well. Something I appreciate about games is how much developers can express through unique visual styles. It's our first impression of a game, and in cases can make or break a game for some players, even before they've even pressed the button. I'm sure that's true when it comes to the game The Past Within. When looking at any development studio, sometimes you know exactly what you're in for. That is certainly the case with Rusty Lake and their extensive catalogue of games. Calling their art style distinct would be an understatement. Its minimalistic nature is vivid, but also in a way eerie, which plays quite well into their games. You'll either love it or not care that much for it. The Past Within is quite story driven. I didn't really expect that the first time I played it, thinking more it'll be an interesting puzzler with some neat mechanics to fiddle around with. This turned out to be of little surprise though when you learn that it fits quite well into what is known as the Rusty Lake universe. The games have some overlap and it turns out they fit together quite nicely. As for the story, I honestly do not want to give anything away. I won't say there are spoilers in the normal sense. The game slowly unpacks as you progress and what will hit you is the strangeness you encounter. As I said, there is something eerie about it all, in the art style and what unfolds throughout the game. It almost leans into horror territory. I say almost because of some of its strangely gruesome aspects, but there are lots of deeper elements at play here. Being a point-and-click adventure, the puzzles make up the centerpiece of your time here. It's where the game needs to shine, so obviously Rusty Lake didn't disappoint. In fact, the most insane part of the game is that it can be played completely offline. It boggles my mind to figure out how they managed to build the game so efficiently around this. All you need is a partner to communicate with, and as you solve your puzzle, it will give the clue how they solve theirs, and so it goes on. Whether through Discord, a phone call, or even screaming from one room to another in the same household, as long as you can relay the clues to one another, the game can be played. The puzzles aren't insanely difficult, but can lead to quite a few head scratchers. So if you enjoy escape room style puzzles, or just want to explore a surreal adventure with someone else, The Past Within will deliver that in spades. It's becoming more common for developers to dabble in co-op gameplay. While it's true that a multiplayer component in games has been a big part of the industry for a long time, over the years though, games have leaned more towards adding in the option to be joined by a handful of your friends. Then there are developer studios that are hard focused on delivering a purely cooperative experience. Total Mayhem Games is a studio that definitely falls into that category. Since they were founded, they've been tweaking and fine-tuning their formula, and it all started with the 2017 release of We Were Here. The game first found life as a student project and was even entered into the Independent Games Festival in 2018. From humble beginnings, the small title had gained enough traction that the studio knew they had something promising on their hands. A year later, Total Mayhem released a follow-up and their first true commercial game in the form of We Were Here 2. Over the years, they went on to provide us a solid line of games in the series, and I'm pretty sure, well after this video, the We Were Here games would still be going strong. If you're just taking the first game into account, smaller project or not, there's still a pretty solid effort that went into this one. Playing as two people separated with only walkie-talkies at their disposal, the players will need to work together in order to find their way back to one another. It's simple, yet there's so much that can be done with this concept. What makes the basis work so well is how involved and engaging the puzzles can be. Much like the previous game on this list, there is a sort of escape room feel to how the players would approach the different encounters. The castle you are stuck in is quite atmospheric and makes for some spooky moments, but it all boils down to how you unfold the puzzles at hand. Diving into We Were Here makes for an interesting excursion, if a little on the shorter end in length. Even so, the game is available for free and it's well worth picking up with a friend and giving it a decent go. Trying out both roles will deliver an afternoon's worth of fun, and if you find it enticing enough, you can get the next entry at a budgeted price. You might just end up enjoying it enough to give the entire series a shot. We're jumping from one interesting student project straight to another. I find it interesting how a handful of aspiring developers can go and, putting some unique fresh takes and perspectives together, can come up with a real banger of a title. If it's creativity that's on the table, then Dio certainly puts its best hoof forward. What started off in 2014 as just a fun holiday project for a handful of game design students in Berlin steadily grew into something more. They hammered out the concept for a few more years, and in 2018 we finally saw the game launch on Steam. It's quite an impressive endeavor just what they managed to pull off, which definitely shows when you take a look at all the awards the game has raked in. There's no elaborate story to be told, or anything complex about it. What you find is a set of minotaurs dealing with a tricky situation inside a maze of sorts. How you'll be dealing with said situation is one of the most interesting takes on a puzzler I've seen in a while. Each player will have their own side of the screen and basically still be able to cross over into the same level. It's a little tough to explain the concept in words that'll make sense, so I hope the gameplay you see as I talk make up for the poor choice of description. There's a simplicity to its layout that I really like. Straightforward gameplay with only a few buttons to press, so you can jump right in. It makes the game very approachable. As you progress, things inevitably start ramping up, with some more mechanics being introduced and some tougher challenges to try and wrap your head around. Now, I won't call myself a puzzle expert, so for me the game offered up many a great challenge to overcome. I bet these will hit different from person to person, but for me it felt perfectly in the middle. Exactly there where I won't be screaming with frustration. When all was said and done, the game took me and my wife a few hours to play through. This is a lot on offer for a game that we didn't have to pay for, a fact that still blows my mind. As a game put forward by a team who spent years of their lives, a passion project such as this is commendable. If this is the sort of game that catches your fancy, then Dio is certainly worth every minute of your time. Sometimes you only have to look at a game to know if you're going to like it or not. Way back when I was looking through my Steam discovery queue, I saw Biped pop up and it immediately went onto my wishlist. When I eventually got around to the game, it delivered every bit of the maddening fun that I had first imagined. Just going over developer Next Studio's interesting history of games makes for quite the fascinating find. The sheer variety in their collection is what really caught my eye, and it feels like they have no intention of being pegged into a niche. Just to name a few titles: Irisful, a cartoon-styled puzzle adventure game; Bladed Fury, an action platformer set in ancient China; Unheard, an audio-driven detective game; and Crown Trick, a strategic turn-based tactics game. Their styles and genres run across the spectrum of gaming, so a collaborative game where two robots have to work together to overcome challenges doesn't seem too far off for the studio. How they managed to pave the way towards the concept was when two of their programmers worked on the idea of two adventurous robots scaling a landscape. While the finer details changed and evolved, it was the foundation of what they were making that had struck a chord. Next Studios every so often held an in-company event where the teams working on different projects got to play each other's prototypes. This made way for a lot of feedback, and over time the devs tried a whole array of concepts to see what works best. Through many iterations, the game slowly came together and in time grew into the game Biped as we know it today. In many ways, as with other titles on this list, what makes the game work so well is the simplistic gameplay that holds everything in place. The players will take charge of their own bot. You would then be in control of each of your bot's legs. I know this sounds weird and such a novel design choice, but it takes a lot of practice to actually pull this off. I can see many players howl with laughter at their own mistakes, as well as their partners. As for us, it made for a ton of fun with more laughs than actual true aggravating moments. That is the most important part of Biped, just having a blast. Getting from A to B will take some effort and require a lot of patience, especially with the zany variety of trials each level will be throwing your way. In the end, it's a game that's not afraid to challenge its players, but you'll find the payoff a truly satisfying reward for your time spent. That brings us to the end of this list of 5 games that are perfect for 2 players. Playing through these alongside a partner was a blast, and I can highly recommend them to anyone. These are just my picks though. Are there any 2-player co-op games that you enjoyed and would like to shed some extra light on? Comment down below and maybe you'll give myself and others some new titles to check out. Like the video to show the channel your support, and subscribe for more top 5 videos and recommendations of old school retro games worth playing. Go on and have yourselves an awesome day. Thank you for watching, keep on gaming, and I'll see you in the next one.